Hey Bill, so we're just going live now on Facebook across the EMEA region. So we're going to be live with all the guys across the EMEA with Hog and Harley-Davidson in the UK and Ireland, in France, and across the rest of the EMEA region. So it's absolutely fantastic to be joined by you, Bill, across in Milwaukee in the museum. It's great to see you. We've met a few times virtually, and I know who you are, and I know that you are the archives manager at the Harley-Davidson Museum. But for the guys at home watching on Facebook, can you just tell us a little bit about the museum, where it's come from, and how you've ended up as archives manager in the museum?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. It's a great honor to be here. And so I'm the manager of Archives and Heritage Services, but yeah, archives manager is fine. I'm a professional archivist and was first exposed to Harley-Davidson. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee for graduate school in the mid-1990s and did a field work. And I told my advisor I really enjoyed working with business archives, business history. And he said, lo and behold, Harley-Davidson actually needs somebody to help start organizing their paper archives collections. And so I did an internship. After that, worked at Harley for a paid basis for a couple of months, and then took my first professional job at a circus museum here in Wisconsin, about 100 miles or so from where I'm sitting, Circus World Museum to be specific. And it's kind of an interesting story. I had a girlfriend who still remained in Milwaukee, so she would come and visit me, and then I would go visit her back here in Milwaukee. And we were sitting in her house one day, and I saw the Harley-Davidson historian who had been my supervisor and his wife out for a walk. And I came running out of the house, and I said, Marty, it's Bill. And he's like, where did you come from? Did you jump out of the bushes or something? And he said, we've been trying to contact you. We actually are going to have a position for archivist opening up. And this was late in 1997. And of course, I had to think about it for 3 seconds. And applied for the job, and so I've been here since January of 1998.
Fantastic. So I love that story. I heard it on the podcast. So for those of you that aren't aware, there's an Apple podcast series that you can listen to from Harley-Davidson over the COVID period, and Bill's done an episode on that, one of the recent episodes, and it's absolutely brilliant. And I love the story. I just think it's such a great moral not to stay at your girlfriend's house. Because you might end up working for Harley-Davidson at the museum and end up with your dream job. So what a great way to find that job in the career. So tell us a little bit about the museum. So it was, the collection's been there all the time, hasn't it? So the business have collected motorcycles basically from day one, and we're not really sure why. We don't know why people have collected motorcycles. That's right, isn't it?
It is. What we do know is that starting in the late 19-teens, at least that early, possibly earlier, the founders of Harley actually had a practice of, for each model year, saving at least one bike, and then making sure to focus on what was the most significant, newest, or just otherwise biggest story for that year. And among the things that we know is that they went to the 1919 Chicago Motorcycle Show and announced, we're going to bring a historical display of our motorcycles to show our legacy of where we've been. At that point, the company is about 16 years old. But they were proud of their history. Yeah, they brought out an 8-valve racing bike, which, if time travel ever becomes possible, give anything to go back and see that. But those motorcycles became the foundation of the collection in the museum that I'm sitting in now. And so their successors picked up that practice. We do it today. We make sure at least one motorcycle from each model year is preserved. So the big story for 2021 is obviously the Pan America. So our Pan America motorcycle literally just arrived about 2 weeks ago.
Fantastic. So have you had an opportunity to ride the Pan America as well?
I have not yet, and I meant to do it last weekend. I missed a previous opportunity, but I'm hearing nothing but great things.
The news over here, so the UK and Ireland launch is this week, and the press have been riding it, dealers are riding it today and tomorrow, and all the stuff's been good news. So I think it's all great stories so far, which is brilliant. So let's keep our fingers crossed for that, and maybe it'll be a highlight of the museum in 100 years' time. So the museum in its current state and its current location. So that was 2008 that you opened in the
Correct.
current location. Is that right? So tell us a little bit about how did that happen? How did you move to this current site?
Well, the archives collection, as you point out, basically existed before that. The motorcycles and other things, paper, marketing ephemera, some administrative files, things like that. So there was the archives, which was really created and organized in the wake of the Harley's 90th anniversary, which was 1993. There were past CEOs and others in company leadership going all the way back to the 1970s who said, we really need to do more with this fantastic collection. So there was a small museum at our York, Pennsylvania factory for many years. But it was within the time that I joined the company, the efforts really got more serious. And there was an initial site selected, and that site was shelved in favor of the one that we're on now. So we're on the intersection of 6th and Canal Street, just south of downtown Milwaukee. So, and now that this is the way that people can access the history and the collections. And of course, social media, we do our best. We always want to do more to have a great social media presence for everybody around the world.
So the social media stuff this year, and it's been brilliant to see, looking at the bikes and the guys pulling the bikes out and just talking around the specific models. It's absolutely been fantastic to see that. And I think it's just going to be great today because it's a hog benefit, isn't it? So it's a hog benefit that we can go into the museum for free and we can walk around and we can see all the stuff. And that's brilliant. And it really is a great opportunity. But it's really difficult for us to get from here to you guys and be able to do that. And especially this year, it's been virtually impossible for the most of the year. So I think this, just having you on the Facebook Live today and just being able to have a chat is a great way for us just to have a bit of a tour around the museum. We've seen some comments coming in. We've got some thumbs up. We've got some hellos. There's hellos from Ireland. There's hellos from East Sussex. There's also a comment there which you'll love, Bill, is love the knucklehead behind you, Bill. So it's already picked up the attention of the knucklehead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take a little bit of a back seat for a little bit and let you just take us on a short tour. And once you've been through a little bit, let's pause for a bit. Let's chat about some of the things that we've seen. But if you can show us around a little bit of the museum for a few minutes, that would be great. And we'll have another chat in a couple of minutes' time.
Okay, I'm glad to do that. So thank you for the viewer who pointed out the knucklehead behind me. I'll kind of straighten out this shot here. And at some point, I'm going to give you some better views of this. I discussed with my colleagues here that people are not going to want to look at me the whole time. So we're going to do some shots here where you can just see nothing but the vehicles. In fact, this might be a good time for me to do that. And we're going to go to the back camera. 1 second. And so this is much better. So this is our 1936 Model EL, and some of you already know this bike as the Knucklehead. This is all original. So it's got the paint and the plating and the seats. The seat on this bike and some of the other bikes are actually the same as they left the factory with. In this case, 1935 or 36. And it's when you see these front fender plates, when you come here, those plates were done for those display purposes, like that Chicago Motorcycle Show, up until 1971. So when you walk through the museum, those are what we call our core collection vehicles. They've never left the possession of the motor company. Some of the bikes have, as little as 100, 200 miles on them. And that came from just the bike being pushed around from point A to point B over the years. Some of them had been run at some point. You can even see on the pipes here. But the gallery I'm in right now is really devoted to the evolution of Harley-Davidson styling, and when we kind of became a styling leader. In fact, I'm kind of getting ahead of things here, but many of your astute viewers know about the relevance of olive green to Harley history, and so for many, many years post World War I, green was not the only color, but it was kind of a primary color. But then due to the Great Depression, they needed to stimulate sales. They couldn't develop the new bikes that they really wanted to, and so they used, played around with color to make the bikes, to give them a newer look. But this 1933 VLD here is a great example. It's very much similar to the bike that preceded it 1 year before, but it's got this beautiful two-tone paint. And again, this is original. So what I should do is start back at the beginning, because one of the things that people see, in fact, one of the very first things people see once they've presented their ticket and they've gotten here is a gallery that includes our very oldest motorcycle. It was nicknamed Serial Number 1 many, many years ago, following a restoration in the mid-1990s. And there's a lot of mystery about this bike. We call it an 0304 vintage, but a great deal of this bike is very correct. That is, correct 190304 engine. It's a 1905 frame. But again, we don't really know, how they acquired this bike. Did they acquire it from the outside? We believe they did, because one of the ways that core collection I talked about was built was they actually bought best possible examples of motorcycles off of owners at some point in the 19 teens, saying we're looking for good specimens. And so the same would follow for this very impressive row of bikes. And I sometimes make the joke, and it's not even necessarily strictly humorous, but if you walk down this very long row of motorcycles, and this is just one of two rows, I sometimes say that it's like Darwin's ascent of man, because you can look at the very kind of basic look that bikes had in those days. And of course, Harley starts with a single. The bike, the Serial Number 1 I just showed you, was a single. And so singles really are Harley-Davidson's bread and butter, as it was for many motorcycle companies. But very early on, not just Harley-Davidson, but others are conceiving of twin-cylinder motorcycles. And this is the 1909 Model 5D, which is our earliest twin. And as people walk through, there's text panels everywhere that they can read. There's an audio tour for those of you who can make it here. You can have an audio tour. We try to change up that content. And we tried to do our best with a lot of interpretive history and telling stories. And I should just briefly walk back here because it's not just about bikes, right? Because it's the people who really make Harley-Davidson what it is. And so there's the 4 founders of Harley. I obviously won't go through the whole museum. I wish I could. It would take many hours, but I'm not sure how well your viewers are seeing this. This is a 1901 engineering drawing for a bicycle motor done by William Harley. So this is really one of our foundational documents, kind of I guess you could call it our Rosetta Stone, but telling the stories of people. And, for your viewers, the gallery that I'm standing in now is really devoted to the birth and the growth of the dealer network. And so why is that so important? Because had Harley-Davidson not started and built and cultivated the dealer network and kept it healthy as they did, it's conceivable that the company never would have made it. So Arthur Davidson, as it turns out, one of the co-founders, he co-founded the company with William S. Harley. Among other things, he loved to travel, and he wanted to see America, and very soon after that, he wanted to see other parts of the world. But he was using this as an opportunity to grow the dealer network. And so Harley-Davidson had a very expansive dealer network in the first 2 decades that we were in business. I'm not sure how well you're seeing this, but we've got non-English language literature. This is the same motorcycle brochure in 4 different languages. And this is 1928. Japanese, Spanish, Dutch, and Chinese. And so these are the things that we're really proud of, because nobody else was really doing this. And just as other American manufacturers, some of them even did not even build a dealer network. And those who did, in those days with trade agreements and transportation and all these kind of issues, it just really wasn't that easy to do. But if you start early and work hard at it, Arthur would also recruit field salespeople in those countries and in those regions who knew the local languages, knew the local business laws. And so I'm convinced from everything I've seen, these are old magazines, the Harley-Davidson Enthusiast magazines and the Harley-Davidson Dealer, among others. The Enthusiast was briefly done in Spanish language. These are English, obviously, but so, and the other thing that dealers did that's so absolutely key is they gave the riders a reason to ride. And when you think about that, about cultivating your own customer base, keeping them on their bikes, is in the very earliest days, I think people really didn't know where the motorcycle was going to end up in the market. And it was conceived of as a competitor to the automobile. This is a 1936 police bike. This is probably also a good opportunity. I'm going to transition over across the way to our clubs gallery, clubs in competition. This gallery gets into the World War II years. So the dealers give the customers a reason to ride and keep active with them, and they ride with them. That really built the brand and it built the company. If they had not done that, you have to remember that many, many motorcycle companies worldwide that started out in those early years never made it. Some of them lasted as little as a year or two. Others made a really good showing and succumbed to world wars, the Great Depression. There was a particularly bad recession following World War I. And Harley survived all of these things, but the reason they did was that customer loyalty, that international base. There's, if you were to look through the numbers, in fact, Walter Davidson was president by 1920 and said, you know, if we did not have our international business outside the U.S., we might not be afloat right now. So, but I said I would talk about clubs. So what's the predecessor to the Harley Owners Group? It's really the early motorcycle clubs. They were starting in the U.S., but they were international as well. In fact, we've been in contact with Club Prague, which is believed to be, I think they are correct when they say they're Prague, Czechoslovakia, the oldest motorcycle club in the world. They donated some film footage to us that I believe is dated 1918. Pretty extraordinary. But so these clubs had, here in the U.S., they had American Motorcycle Association sanction. Here's a safety award. Some of them were just their own clubs that weren't necessarily affiliated with any larger group. The factory was not sponsoring clubs at this point. This is the Milwaukee Civic Riders. And so a look that will be very familiar to many people is this, you know, the club appearance of like a, you know, club cap, an actual, you know, necktie, and this very formal looking, either police style or paramilitary style. And so there's the Black Panthers. They were out of Milwaukee. This is one of my favorite objects just because we know the gentleman who donated it to us, and he's just one of my favorite people. He's almost like family to me. Had great, great stories to tell. He met his wife because of motorcycling. And you hear those great stories too, that, you know, if I had not become a motorcyclist, my life might have turned out differently. So, and then of course, the reason we have the clubs in competition in the same gallery is one of the things the clubs did is they organized races and they went to races, and motorcycle competition and the clubs really grew up and evolved together and nurtured each other and kept each other going. And this is a replica section. Should stand back a little bit here. Board track racing, and these were motorcycle and automobile racetracks, believe it or not, that were made entirely out of wood, both the superstructure and the surface. And so you would have this very steep banking. The thing about a motorcycle board track or a motorsports board track is you can build the banking as steeply as you want to make it. And so that allows for very high speed through the turns. And these bikes have no brakes. And so if you can imagine, in those days, some of these races were not unlike MotoGP level of, you know, the kind of performance and speed. It was very, very dangerous. But maybe I should just walk. This is one of my favorite galleries, obviously, because there's so much history here. And the company, at first did not want a racing team. Arthur Davidson was vehemently against racing. He felt it was bad for the image of motorcycling. And but they eventually had to develop their own team. And the reason for that was marketing. I don't know if this is a phrase that is used outside the United States, but it goes, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. So if you race on Sunday, you're getting some marketing benefit from, these bikes and these vehicles having great performance. And again, this is just the top floor. One of the people's favorite spots.
Hey, Bill,
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stop you there because we get loads of great comments in. And I just really think that you're going to try and show us the whole museum in like 45 minutes. And I don't think we're going to do it justice. So I'm just going to slow you down and let's have a little chat about some of the stuff. Because the stuff you're talking about there is just fantastic. I mean, you've got the history of clubs. We've got Prague, Club Prague. It's just brilliant to see all the things. So looking back through, so in terms of just picking up on the clubs and picking up on what we've got coming in comments. Right, so are you ready for this, Bill? Because I'm going to run through some of the guys that are listening. So we've got the Ireland, East Sussex. We've got Scotland. We've got France. We've got Bart from Westport 66 chapter in Belgium. We've got guys from Edinburgh. We've got Mancunium chapter in Manchester in England. We've got Hogsback chapter in Surrey in the UK. We've got Chelsea and Fulham chapter in London. We've got Neen Valley chapter in the UK. We've got Plymouth chapter. We've got Sherwood chapter. We've got Ostfold chapter in Norway. We've got 1066 chapter in the UK. We've got some great stuff. It's great to have a great look around the museum. Hope to get there in person soon. We've got Meridian chapter of London. That's another Wars chapter as well. So you'll know John War. I'm sure
Absolutely.
So I was actually privileged enough to have a look around some of their bikes last week on Friday, and I mean they've got a collection that's it's not second to the museum, but it's absolutely brilliant for the UK and a great opportunity to go and have a look at some bikes. Dunedin chapter in Scotland, somebody from the Netherlands. We've got Plymouth chapter. We've got Germany. We've got all sorts of 3 Rivers, Malta chapter. So we've got people represented really from across the UK and Ireland and Europe as well. So great to see people joining us today. And if anyone's got any questions, I think if they can just stick them in the comments so that we've got some stuff in there, that would be brilliant. Because it's just a great opportunity to talk. So we've got one in there that just a little bit of an odd question, which I think is well worth picking out. So it's at the museum. Do you have any secrets, or is there something that's not really public knowledge at the museum? Is there something that's a treasure trove, or is it all just shared with us as Harley enthusiasts?
Not really from the historical standpoint, no. Because when we making constant discoveries? Yes, we are. And one of the ways that happens is through donation. I'm not sure how well known it is in Europe, but there's a very kind of revered endurance run that's held in the United States every year called the Jack Pine. Very, very grueling. Some of the toughest terrain you can possibly imagine. And so we just had a donation literally within the last few weeks of some Jack Pine footage, film footage. And what we're doing is we're trying to get that stuff out on social media to share it. And we're also discovering things within our own files. One of the things we do here on a regular basis is get things converted to digital and get them searchable. We've got motorcycle trade magazines with reviews going all the way back to 1900. And so if we discover something new about how a motorcycle was launched and hit the market, we try to get those things out there.
And I know that's, again, from the podcast, I know that's one of the things that really appeals to you is those old motorcycle magazines and trade presses that you really, I think that's the museum genes coming through there and making sure that we've got that archive as a complete archive. So we've got, what else have we got? We've got another one there that was, I mean, this is brilliant. I'm sure you get asked this all the time. We've probably asked you at completely the most inappropriate time. But what's your favorite bike at the museum? What is your favorite bike at the museum?
Oh boy. Most of the time, and when we initially had these conversations with all of you, back to the 1936 knucklehead here, just the level of originality, but what that bike meant to Harley history, as far as not just the appearance, but the engine, the powertrain, it not only transformed Harley-Davidson's product line permanently thereafter, but it really kind of transformed the American motorcycle market. Were it not for this bike, who knows, would Harley have survived? You talk about discovery. One of the things when we were building a museum is researching files about how it was received. And this was kind of the one biggest project they could do during the Great Depression, and told dealers, because the dealers were the conduit on customer feedback, and told the dealers, let us know what your customers are telling you. And the dealers came back and said, this is it. This is the bike we've been waiting for. Those of you who ride a bike with a Milwaukee 8 engine or a twin cam 88 or an Evolution engine, that engine draws its design from the knucklehead here. On the lower level of the museum is a beautiful 1958 Duo Glide, which is another favorite of mine. All original. That bike looks like it left the factory floor last week. So those are just two.
So that's just two, and I get the feeling that you've got plenty of others. So again, just another sort of quick rundown of chapters. We've got a Lithuanian guy joining us from the Netherlands World Port chapter. So those guys over there, they're fantastic. They came to visit us at our rally a couple of years ago, and they brought me a set of clogs, so Dutch shoes and apparently I have to wear them when I'm riding the Harley. You try doing heel toe shift with clogs on. That's hard work. So Black Mountains chapter in Wales, we've got Lakeside chapter, we've got Thames Valley chapter. We've got a proud museum founder member. We've got a worldwide family. We've got Geordie chapters. This is again loads of stuff. Oxford chapter in the UK as well. So I just wanted to make sure that we had a chance just to have a quick chat and talk to you before you got carried away and too excited about showing stuff to us. So what I would like to do is, if we can go back to you giving us a quick tour, and I'll hand over to you for another 5 or 10 minutes, and once we get to another bit, just have a chat, and we'll see if there's any more questions.
That sounds good. If you don't mind, I can walk downstairs, because we've only been on the upper level at this point. If that's okay with you, and I'm going to switch back to our back camera here. And for those, maybe some of your viewers have actually been here, and the upper level goes up to just post World War II. Another Europeans usually are very keenly aware of this, the XA model. So this was a World War II model for which only about 1,100 units were made. But as the war raged in North Africa, the U.S. government told motorcycle manufacturers, we need a motorcycle that's much better adapted for North African use because of the heat and the sand. And so Harley basically knocked off a BMW. It's not any great secret in history. There's that opposed twin engine. But so sometimes people don't know, and they come back and they say, did Harley make an opposed twin? And the answer is yes. Sometimes we get those questions and we've never heard of it before. Some examples, people say airplane engines. I remember when I first joined Harley. Harley made airplane engines. It's like, no, we didn't. But so the history picks up downstairs, and for the real history buffs, the post-World War II years brought a couple of things. It brought new trade agreements between the United States and European countries, including the UK. The UK had a very robust motorcycle market. Companies like Norton and BSA and Triumph. And so that meant a sudden influx of Harley's main competition is coming from Europe now. Prior to that, it was the United States and in particular Indian motorcycles. And so you've got, this is the 1948 Model S, and it very much is patterned after a German DKW model. And that was part of war reparations. And so that led to a whole line of popular lightweights, single cylinder, 2-stroke, like that. And then mainly that UK competition led to Harley-Davidson developing the K series. And this is a KH model 1954. And the Ks set the stage for the Sportsters. The Ks were popular. They were good bikes. The K led to a very successful dirt track racing motorcycle, the KR. But when the Ks go away for the 1956 model year, that's the last year, and they're replaced by Sportsters, which come out in 1957. And this is, again, one of those all-original bikes. The condition continues to just, amaze me. It's almost like a time warp. Like I said, some of these bikes look like they could have come off the assembly line a week ago. And so we try to tell these stories. I'm trying not to get into the whole history here, but the next big influx is bikes from Italy. So Harley-Davidson purchased a minority interest in the early going in Aermacchi, or it was called Aeronautica Macchi. The name was changed to Aermacchi, and so Harley history enthusiasts will call these the Italian lightweights because they're lightweights, but as opposed to the bikes that we were making in the U.S., these bikes came out of Varese, Italy. Of course, the mighty Topper. There was a scooter craze in the United States in the late 50s, early 60s, and Harley threw its hat in the ring for a period of 5 years with the Topper model. The lower level of the museum is even more expansive than the upper. And as you get into this part of the museum, we're telling a lot more of the stories of ridership, popular culture. You can see they're set up for another film shoot over here. But parts and accessories, the importance of parts and accessories to Harley-Davidson business. Another one of my favorite objects in the collection is this very, very rare 5-gallon oil can. And some of these are things that the general public would contact us about. And believe it or not, we don't have one of everything. Not every single solitary thing in Harley history is represented here. So we have a committee here at the museum, and we talk about it. It includes Bill Davidson, Willie G's son. He's involved in those conversations. And it's for things of significance and greater dollar value that we talk about. If it's something on eBay and it's $40, do we need to convene the committee? No, we don't. We can just get it. This is the lower road gallery, obviously. And so the collection is growing. We try to be as judicious as we can and not just be kind of too scattershot. I mentioned my other favorite bike, the 1958 Duo Glide, and that's it right there. That is the only Duo Glide from 1958 you will find anywhere in the world with that green and white, because only about 42 of those or so were built, and we believe this is the sole surviving one. These beautiful Aermacchi racers, the Italian racers of the 1960s. And so we really wanted to make sure those stories of ridership are told because, as I mentioned, it's the riders who made the company what it is. It's the riders who made the brand what it is. And because Harley-Davidson is so recognizable, Harley's marketers never could have done this on their own. They only could have done it with this loyal following of ridership that has kept us afloat since 1903. It's a very recent acquisition, a Mexican stunt rider named Alfonso Sotomayor. We've been working with the family on getting his history documented. We are striving more and more to tell these international stories and to tell more diverse stories. As you would find often with U.S. business history, we're much better documented about the Harley-Davidson experience in the United States. And
sorry, Bill. I'm gonna grab you.
Please.
Back. Can you go back for a second? This is a very personal question, and it's just the other side, the fat boy. we're gonna have a look at the Fat Boy. That's where we're heading over there. So for me, that was the bike that got me into Harley-Davidson. And I didn't recognize it from Terminator. I don't know where it came from, but that's the bike that I wanted to get. And I think it's just fantastic that we can see all of the history. The Easy Rider was referenced. We were chatting with one of the chapter directors in the UK, a guy called Andy Cole, who's the director at the St. Ledger chapter. I almost forgot one of the chapter names. That would have been terrible, wouldn't it? St. Ledger chapter in Doncaster. And he said it was Easy Rider for him. And to see those two bikes there, I mean, that's just where you get interested in the brand and where you pick up things from. So we've got other statements there coming in, just saying that we've got somebody wants to see me do a clog dance. I don't think that's happening today, Bill. We're not going to keep doing that. There's Red Rose chapter. There's somebody was asking, could they see the 58 Duo? So now that we've seen that as well, that's brilliant. So they've seen that one as well. And there's another comment there about some of the early sketches and the early Hog logos. So what we're going to hopefully do, Bill, and I'm sure that you know Steve Field as well as everyone else does, we're going to have a chat with Steve at some point in the future about the history of Hog and the Harley Owners Group, because I think if there was ever a man that was going to help us to understand that and how that came about, I think he's going to be the second best to Willie G to tell us a bit about the history of where that came from. So I'm going to hand back over to you. We'll give you another couple of seconds just to grab your breath, and let's see what else you can find for us to have a look at as you continue your tour.
Yes, and thank you for that. And with the museum closed right now, you can have free reign, but we call this the celebration wall. It's one of my favorites. Over the years, whether it was Harley-Davidson asking riders to send photos of themselves with their bikes, or people just do it on their own. And it goes all the way back to some of the earliest years of the company. And so you can see some very old shots. This is one of my absolute favorite images in our entire collection. This was an employee whose grandmother donated this to the company. That's a very old photo. Another thing that's happened, this gentleman here showed up at the museum and said, "You guys have my picture in your museum." And he was deeply honored. He was very emotional about it. Great guy to talk to. And that's part of the big honor of being here, because these are the people. I always tell these people, it's because of you I have a job, and it's not a bad job either. Some of you know about the tsunami bike, and so when the earthquake and subsequent tsunami struck Japan in March of 2011, this motorcycle was in a storage container, and it was buoyant enough. It floated all the way across the ocean from Japan to Canada in British Columbia, where it ended up on a beach. Hopefully we can get a good shot here. That's what it looked like when it was on the beach. And so you can see what over a 1 year's worth of ocean salt water does to a Harley-Davidson. Very unique story, but our curators did an excellent job of telling that story. It's very sensitive. Obviously, it was a horrible human tragedy. But on the lighter side, somebody in the press reported, and it got handed along for a while, that Harley-Davidson's going to get that motorcycle running again. I can tell you nobody's going to get that motorcycle running again. That ocean salt water got into everything. And yeah, so there's a lot of things here about the stories in the 1970s and 80s. You have to forgive me, I'm kind of chronologically jumping around here, but we've got the first issue of Hog Tales, and you'd mentioned Hog, and the experience here, some concepts. I think this is very funny. You've got a Harley-Davidson eagle logo, and somebody conceived of a Harley Owners Group logo with a pig. And Hog is the lifeblood of Harley-Davidson, and excuse me, we could never get all of the history. We could never get, I think, to be able to do that story justice, all we can do is keep kind of building on that. This is a photo from one of the very, very first Hog rallies in 1983. Some of the early advertising for Hog. But again, that club participation and keeping the dealers riding with the customers is why we're still here. Chronologically, again, I'm kind of going backward in time. This is the 1970s, and Harley made snow machines, golf cars, if you can believe it. This was actually a very lucrative part of Harley's business for about 20 years. And so, yeah, it's there's a boat floating in the air. Just stand way back. Part of our story is the fiberglass and resin parts on Harley-Davidsons come out of a plant in Wisconsin called Tomahawk, the town of Tomahawk. And that plant began as a boat company. They made boat bodies, boat hulls. And Harley-Davidson bought that plant in order to get the tooling and equipment to make fiberglass parts. And for a brief period, Harley continued to sell the boats. And I'm not sure if you're going to see this, but it says a subsidiary of Harley-Davidson Motor Company. So people say, did I see a Harley-Davidson boat? And in a sense, they did. So many people are savvy and knowledgeable about it. We have motorcycles in the collection that did not go to market. This is one of them. The project was finally terminated in 1981, but a V4 water-cooled motorcycle. It was given the name Project Nova. I believe it never got to the point of getting, getting an official name, but that's a engine is a keystone engine. It's a stressed part of the motorcycle and acts as basically like a frame member. Those of you who really know our bikes know that some of these elements did end up on Harley-Davidson motorcycles, like that front fairing you would see on FXRT Sport Glide models. And the same thing with the saddlebags. We're very fortunate to collect these things and to be able to collect them. Believe it or not, some companies do not like talking about the things that they never went to market with. And the very strong feeling to this day at Harley-Davidson is this is a part of our history. So any questions? I feel like I'm talking too much.
No, I mean, absolutely brilliant. So one of the questions there that you'd obviously preempted and you knew was coming was a question that from Rutland chapter in the UK. Do you have any prototype engines on display that never made it to production, and why didn't they? So I think you probably just talked us through one of them and the bike that went with it. So absolutely brilliant. Thanks, Bill, for doing that. So let's get to know you a little bit, Bill, while we go back up the stairs. So what bike do you ride, Bill?
I am currently riding a 2021 Ultra Limited.
So this is one of the things I found fascinating. So I thought that you would be a collector, and I know that you're not. So that is your only Harley-Davidson, isn't it, as an individual?
Yeah, we actually, a member of my staff, many of your viewers have seen him. His name is Bill Redensel. We have 4 guys named Bill working here. And he is a collector and very, very knowledgeable. One of his bikes actually looks very similar to this one. His is a 39 Knucklehead, for which I'm envious. And then this is a 39 Flathead. But yeah, my career has been steeped in, the preservation of the history. There's always a challenge. I talked about digitizing film. We've got film in the collection, some of which you've been seeing on our social media. And those old magazines, we're looking at getting our digital index of actually the Hog Tales magazine and subsequent Hog magazine. They're just such rich sources of information. And so these are the things that, really occupy my time.
No, I think it's fantastic. So you obviously enjoy riding, and you enjoy getting out and about, and you enjoy your motorcycle life. And you do have one of the coolest jobs in the world. People think my job's cool, but you've got one of the coolest jobs in the world. So where would you go if you were just to jump on your bike and go anywhere in the world for a few days for a ride? Where would it be, and why would you go there?
Well, that's such a great question because there's still so much of the U.S. that I want to see, and there's still so much of the world that I want to see. It's the thing is, meeting the people is a huge part of such of the privilege, but there's also, it's such a great therapy for me. In fact, if you were to ask me what's the most therapeutic thing that I currently do in my life, and sometimes even to the neglect of things like taking care of my yard or taking care of my house, I will go out riding. The nice weather is just coming now to this part of the world. And it was a long winter. It was a long COVID winter. But I still have things on my bucket list like national parks here in the United States, which are, among the most popular things with motorcyclists. I love mountains. I would love to get over to Europe and ride through the Alps. So hopefully that can happen someday. I'll show you the engine room because you brought up engines.
Fantastic. Well, the offer's there. If you ever get across to Europe or you want to come across to Europe, we can help you with that and make sure you get some of the great roads in the UK and in Europe. So absolutely brilliant opportunity. Look at those engines. Look at that fantastic history there, all the way through to Milwaukee 8 there. So there was also somebody mentioned Sturgis. Have you ever visited Sturgis as an event?
Yes, and it's usually hot, but it's just the being where the all of the energy is. Because the thing about even smaller motorcycle events, there's a vibe there that I think you can't always get with everything. And the thing about Harley riders is I find them a lot nicer than the general populace. If you're to ask me to be with 100 Harley riders or 100 strangers, I'm going to take the Harley riders every time. Because I think they're there with common cause, right? They share something, and you don't always find that in just kind of general public spaces.
So we've had somebody suggest that you flip the camera around so that we can see you and the stuff behind you. So I think they must be missing you. I think that must be what's happening there. Or they're sick of looking at me. I'm not sure which one it is. Probably me. So what about memories then? So if we're thinking about a Harley-Davidson memory for Bill Jackson, what is your favorite, your biggest, your strongest Harley-Davidson memory?
There's a couple, and so I appreciate people letting me kind of I'll head back to where we started here. When I first started a Harley in 1998, I was getting a sense of the ridership and what these people were like. And that was the year of the 95th anniversary, and there was the big event here in Milwaukee. And I'm of Scots-Irish descent, which, among other things, here in the U.S. means that I sunburn like crazy. If I stand out in the sun long enough, I turn like as red as tomato. And a woman, I have no idea to this day who she was, saw me and took pity on me and came up. She went and found a cotton cloth and dunked it in some ice water, and she came up to me and she said, "It's just, you're so burned," and she was dabbing my face and giving me some relief. And I thought, that's just amazing. Who are these people that would do that? And like I said, you don't know, there's plenty of nice people everywhere, but I just wasn't ready for it. Another memory was Arthur Harley-Davidson called shortly after the museum opened in 2008. He was the son of the founding Arthur Davidson, 94 years old at the time, and said, "Would you like to come out to my house? I've got some old junk to donate to you." And I said, "We know who you are, and I'm sure it's not junk." So I went out to his house, an absolute delight of a person to talk to, and had some photographs. He had the passports. I talked about Arthur Davidson going overseas to recruit new dealers. And these were the passports that Arthur and his wife used to recruit dealers in the UK, in Europe, in the South Pacific. I believe one of them is for like Tasmania and Australia for like 1924. How long does it take to get from Milwaukee to Australia in 1924? I mean, it just boggles the mind. And then he had the opportunity to visit us, and he was just such an amazing person to talk to, amazing sense of humor, amazing memory. He actually never worked for the company, which was a story unto itself, but he was very passionate about preserving the history of the company that his father started, and I'll never forget it.
I think I've heard that story before, and I can just imagine you when you get the shout to say that he was on the phone. How quickly you managed to dump the tour and run down the stairs to pick up the phone and go to talk to him. But yeah, I mean it's just such a great way, and it is fantastic that with a brand like Harley-Davidson, you know, and the history that's there with the whole company and Hog, the owners group, Harley-Davidson is a brand. The stuff that's come and gone on the way through, it is genuinely unique. And you know, there's a love for all of this stuff. You know, you mentioned the golf carts and the fact that they were around for 20 years. There's just a great history there of other things that the motor company have done. If there was a couple of items, so you mentioned the 5-gallon oil drum. What other things are sort of really odd that we could see in the museum? Sort of really obscure, strange things that are a highlight.
Sure. Let me switch cameras here again. We've actually got a number of things like that. Just literally a couple feet away here. I don't know how well you're seeing these, but these are paint striping brushes. And I'm getting a lot of reflection off the glass here, but so those 1930s motorcycles with the Art Deco design, you can see that thin pinstripe around the gas tank. The striping, the paint department actually had hand stripers on staff, if you can believe that. And so this was a donation from the daughter of the gentleman who was the factory striper. But you think about that kind of craftsmanship, and it's virtually unheard of in the automotive world. Now, and of course, all of the paintwork is automated. I had already shown you the foreign language materials. Another favorite is post or during World War I, as Harley-Davidson was selling motorcycles to the military, the U.S. government requested training. It said, "Can Harley-Davidson help train our mechanics in the Army?" And the service school was started by a guy named Joe Ryan. Its first name was the Quartermaster School, service school right there. And so the Quartermaster School was training military mechanics. And this is Joe Ryan's notebooks. And these are the kind of personal touches, you know, the personal effects that we love really even more than some other things that are a little bit more mundane because they're so unique and they are so personal. And Joe Ryan's glasses. And so, yeah, that was.
I mean, some of those things are it's just brilliant to see the history there with the paintbrushes and stuff around the articles that you've got. I mean, we mentioned it at the start. It is a Hog benefit to go to the museum and be able to come in for free and be able to tour around. And I mean, that is a great benefit to welcome us as owners and enthusiasts to come and tour these archives and look at everything to do with the history of the brand. Because everyone that I know that's involved with Harley-Davidson in any way, shape, or form, after about 18 months of ownership, it becomes part of who they are. At that point, they become genuinely interested on how things happen and what's come before it. And it is a great opportunity. And tonight, to be able to do this quick tour, or this morning for you guys, it's just brilliant to be able to spend this time having a look at some of these articles, artifacts, bikes, models, all sorts of things that are coming in. We're getting more hellos. We've got some people there again from. We've got Alex from Belgium. Good afternoon or good evening, Alex from Belgium. It's great to see you. So the question there for you, Bill: how many Harleys have you owned, and which one is your favorite, and why?
Well, for the employees, some of us, at least here in Milwaukee, will trade in pretty much every year. The company makes it. It's a very friendly situation for us to do that. Honestly, I think my current bike, that's just the comfort, the all-day comfort of that bike. I've owned Fat Boys, Heritage Softails. Love the Heritage Softail, especially in the wake of the improvements to the Softail line in 2018. I fear that if I let myself, I would get too many bikes, because if it were really up to me, I'd have one of every line. I'd have a Sportster, I'd have a Touring, and I'd have a Softail. And now the Pan America, which I still haven't even ridden yet. But yeah, I would say the current bike.
Brilliant. So, I mean, there's nothing better than loving your current bike. I mean, I'm lucky. I've got a couple. So I've got a 2005 anniversary Fat Boy, which is brilliant. I love that bike. It's the reason I got into Harley-Davidson. I love going for a ride on it. But I do genuinely love raking up miles in the road glide as well. For all the reasons that you've just mentioned, it's like you can just jump on it and just ride. With another question there, we've got somebody's asked us: is the museum fully open now after COVID? So I know that this is pre-opening, so you guys open shortly to the public. So I'm going to say that we are open. But what's happening in terms of COVID restrictions at the museum just now?
So this is the current situation is as of this week, we're open 4 days starting tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Starting next week, we are returning to a 7-day week schedule. The CDC here in the United States is now advising for vaccinated people to go maskless. So we're going to wait for, city of Milwaukee and state of Wisconsin. Of course, they have their things, but things are really opening up here in Milwaukee and Wisconsin again, just everywhere. And like I said, 7 days a week starting next week. So we're very thrilled about that.
Brilliant. So I mean, that's going to be brilliant. If we can get people back to the museum at some point, and if we're able to travel as well, it'd be absolutely brilliant to get across and see you guys. So there's another question that came in a couple of days ago, because we were promoting the fact that we were going to be talking to you. There's a guy in the UK who's writing a book on WLA and WLC bikes and range of motorcycles, and his question is quite specific, really. But how does he go about talking to somebody about the history? So if he's writing the book and he's wanting to talk to somebody, how does he go about? How does that happen? Is there somebody that he can talk to, or should he go through his local market? What's the process?
Yeah, right now it's the one public-facing email address we have is actually for people looking to donate things, but you can also send just any other inquiry like that. And for books, things like that, we actually have an intake process. We look at what the author's requesting of us, but that email address is donations@harley-davidson.com. That's DONATIONS at harley-davidson.com. And we will get that. Actually, I'm one of the people who sees that email address.
Fantastic. So really easy way for somebody, if they've got something that they want to contact the museum about, that's a great way to be able to contact you guys. And who knows, maybe there's somebody in the UK with something under wraps that means that you're going to have to convene the whole committee to see if it's going to get shipped across, because it's valuable to the collection. So who knows what's going to happen. Other comments coming in there just now. We're going to start to wrap it up. We've been on an hour. I know that Bill's got a job to do this afternoon, so he's going to get back to work. And you guys across in further east in Europe are further ahead in time than us. So it's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Bill, for taking the time to spend an hour with us, take us on a tour. Somebody said that they're looking forward to the next live session. Well, I, to be honest, I'm looking forward to the next museum live session. So really sorry, Bill, but you've done a great job, and we'd be delighted to come back if we can, if you'll have us, and maybe have a look at some other bits.
We would love to have you, and it's really an honor. And I feel very strongly. I want to make sure that people outside the U.S. know that we're thinking about them too. We want to get them the history, and it's not that easy for. The farther away you get from Milwaukee, it's not that easy for some people to get here. So thank you so much for having me.
Brilliant. And just to recap a couple of stories, and the one of the traveling and Harley-Davidson developing that dealer network and being traveling and being a passion and really being a lifestyle brand at that point. I mean, that's fantastic that was a lifestyle brand then, and to see that you've surpassed and exceeded and come beyond and traded through all of the recessions, the restrictions, the difficulties, through all of the difficulties all the way through the trading life of the business. And to be a strong brand again today is just phenomenal. And I think I heard the start. Am I right in saying that there's 150 motorcycle brands that have or roughly 150 motorcycle brands that have come and gone in the time that Harley-Davidson's been trading in the US?
That's what we believe. And I think that's not even like all worldwide, because I don't know that anybody's ever tried to chart, but you're absolutely right. Those are companies that came and went in the time that Harley-Davidson's been in business. It's unbroken production, unbroken operation. So thank you to all your riders. You're the ones who did it. You deserve all the credit.
I mean, that's it, isn't it? It's just such a great. You've said about camaraderie, the adventure, the state of adventure for everyone. It's brilliant to see everyone out riding the bikes. I think the next couple of years are going to be really, really exciting. We're literally seeing Pan America dropping on the streets soon. So they're coming basically to dealer near us very soon. I can't wait to ride it. You can't wait to ride it. I'm sure there's loads of other Harley riders out there that want to ride it just to see what it's like, because we know that Harley-Davidson make great bikes, but we just don't know what this one's going to be like. And it's a really exciting point for us. So I think that's a great opportunity. Just, from me, thank you very much, Bill. Thanks for your time. And also to Christina, who's also Christina's hiding behind the camera. She can't pop in. She might run around the back of some bikes and wave to us at some point. But Christina's been there helping us to put the tour on as well. So it's been absolutely brilliant for you guys to be there and helping us out. She's waving with a laptop in hand. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. We've got loads and loads of comments coming in. Great brand, great family, great stuff. So thank you, everyone at the museum. Thanks to the guys at Arts and Dialogue and Enthusiasts for making this happen and making this live stream happen. And thanks to the guys in the UK and Ireland hog community, French hog community, across the rest of Europe and EMEA, where you've all joined in on Facebook Live to have a look at it. Thank you very much. And hopefully we'll see you all soon. So take care, stay safe, and keep riding.
Thank you so much. Take care. See you soon.